Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of This Ability Podcast. I'm your host, Mary Baudouin, and joining us today is Donielle Watkins, the Executive Director of the DREAMS Foundation of Acadiana. Donielle, thank you for joining us today.
Excited to be here.
Great. So tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where do you live, your education.
So I am from Lafayette, Louisiana. I was actually born in Burr Ridge, but shortly after we moved to Lafayette, I went through Catholic school and ended at Como High School, went to UL for 5 years and became a CPA, and we were going to leave and get out of here and go to Dallas. And then God had different plans.
Well, I'm glad he did, because I'm glad you're here in Lafayette with us. And you are married. You have a few children, right?
Yep. Married Brian. We met in college, and we have 3 kids. One is not the traditional. I adopted her, well, pretty much raised her since she was 5. And the other 2 are Logan and Lucas.
So tell us about, well, I guess this is going to be a combination answer, because I was going to ask you about your conception of the DREAMS Foundation, and I think that Logan plays a big part in that. So tell us about his story.
Right. DREAMS was not even in the horizon, a twinkle in our eye, absolutely nothing. We were blessed with a child with special needs, and we accepted a lot of things, and Logan decided that he was tired of accepting, and he wanted to change things, and boy, did he change things.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me the story initially that he wanted to play softball or baseball or something, and he couldn't find a sports area to do that.
Yeah, well, we were actually sitting at one of Monique's games, and he said, "When am I going to play?" And me and Brian stopped us in our tracks. We were like, we're not sure, dude. We'll have to look into that. And so Brian did some research on the internet, which at that time was very rudimentary, but he did find a league up north called the Challenger League. And so we came to the Lafayette Little League and asked them if they could start. The only question they had was, is there enough kids? And I was like, there's at least 50 in town that want to play.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Tell our audience, because I know Logan, but tell us what he was diagnosed with.
So Logan, when he was born, had spina bifida, which is where the back does not close properly.
And he uses a wheelchair.
When he was little, we tried to get him to walk with a walker, and he basically said, I'll not do it, and basically decided that was not something that was in his purview, and we had to accept that him having to think about every step that he took was not something that he wanted to do, and so we had to accept that.
I understand. Now, cognitively, what is his ability like?
He's got lots of street smarts and not as much book smarts.
All right, Logan, my man. That's good. So if we're on the streets, he's the guy to have.
Especially if there are women around.
Oh, that's really funny. I know that the DREAMS Foundation, you started it what year?
2007.
2007. It's been in existence for a while now. I know you're very proud of how much it's grown.
Yeah.
And you have programs, like you have the arts program, bowling, softball. You guys do a lot. Tell me about those programs and who do they cater to?
So the programs kind of just came about as people wanted to do them. So the first one, obviously softball or baseball. And after the first game, Logan wanted to know when basketball was starting. Little did we know then, he just wanted somewhere that he could be on a stage where people would see him. So then we found theater. So he created a theater program also. Although he was in regular CYT, he wanted a stage where he could be with his other friends.
Right. And CYT is a Christian Youth Theater?
Youth Theater. So now we have a Christian Youth Theater DREAMS edition. And if you want to see comedy, come see.
It did take Lexi, Speedy, and I went to the Wizard of Oz production. I was mentioning that to you the other day. And it was hilarious. Yeah. Especially when they improv.
Yeah. It's never the same. Never.
It's so awesome to see. And it's definitely a feel-good kind of show, too. It's just, when you see this gathering of people with special needs doing things that actors would do, and they do it with a lot of heart, with a lot of passion, and a lot of, sense of humor, too. It's great. I love it.
Their favorite part, which is crazy, is costume changes. Yeah. They love, the more costume changes, the more they get excited. I don't even understand, but we had to make a dressing room for them.
I think that's awesome.
It just proves that they want to be like everyone else. They don't want to get treated special. They want to be treated like everyone else. And even when it's that they get in trouble, it's almost like they're standing up straight, like, man, they're noticing me, and I need to correct this and make it better. So that means that I realize that they can do better, and so they will do better because we expect it.
One program that just wrapped up last week or the week before is Camp Unique. So tell our audience more about Camp Unique.
So Camp Unique is a week that me and my husband take off of work, and a lot of the moms and dads come in, and we throw the biggest camp party that you can think of. This past week was Western week, and we had bad dad jokes, we had horses, we had music, we had water balloons, dunk tank. I mean, everything you can think of that is just fun, to just have a lot of fun and be yourself. We had been having camp, and the kids are getting older, and so some of them were like, well, I don't want to go to camp, I'm too old. I'm like, let me tell you something. There is some camps up north, and if I could afford them, I would be there. Adults don't go to camp because they don't want to. They just go to camp because there's not really any around and it's not affordable.
Exactly.
But adults would go to camp if they could, I promise. So once they wrapped their head around that, and they're like, so adults would do this? Yes. And I said, you have the luxury of having it. And so now 100 plus kids come every year.
Right. And every day you have you have a lot of different activities. What are some of the highlights of the activities that you'll have at Camp Unique?
So this past one was Western. So we actually had some horses that came that were therapeutic horses, and they got to paint the horses. So I was like, you actually want them to paint on it? She said, watch. And you would see the kids walk up, and they would see the horse, and they were like, I don't know if I want to touch that horse. And she'd say, but what about touching it with paint? And their whole facial expression would be like, wait, what? And so they would kind of forget that there was a horse there, and they dip their hand in it, and they, before you knew it, they were painting the horse all over the place, forgetting that they were touching a horse. It was just one of those crazy things that I would have never thought to do. But this lady she's from New York, and she's just very outgoing, and those kids just loved being around her. And when she left, she said it was the best 4 hours of my year.
That's awesome.
She's retired, and she came just to do this for us,
Yeah.
And one of the other things we had was TMM Music, which is a new group that comes in and they interactive with the kids.
Okay.
So they had this 30-plus-year-old guy breakdancing.
I would love to see that.
And it was crazy. And the kids are like eyes wide, and then he brought them up and showed them some of the moves. And so about 20 of them got up there, and they were just beaming watching
I bet.
them.
And I think breakdancing is making a comeback. Dancing was a thing back then, and then it definitely left. But now I think it's back again.
Yep, mullet's back. You never know.
That's strange. Some things should be left in the past.
I agree.
Tell me about the Night of Dreams Gala. You guys had that event. I don't remember the annual number, but it's been going on a few years, and I think each year it just grows. Tell us about that.
Exactly. So it started with the Tim Tebow prom. One of the things that a lot of the parents were saying, and even the kids, like, we're going to prom again, which is true. I mean, you're in high school, you go to prom twice, maybe 3 times if you get asked by an older kid, but you're not going to prom the rest of your life. So that's when we realized that we wanted it to be more like a gala, more like a, Mardi Gras type thing. So we changed it to that, and we did our own thing, and it has just exploded. We have 300 plus kids that come every year, 150 to 200 volunteers, plus all the parents are invited. So we have 1,000 people that we're packing into the Blackman Coliseum.
Right. And it just looks like an incredible event. Everybody gets to dress up and just have a good time.
Yeah, they're treated like royalty. They get announced when they get on the red carpet, and if they didn't bring a date, they get to select their date for the night, which is the cutest thing to watch. Oh yeah, I want you. And then that person who gets selected just feels so special.
And everyone gets selected, right? You don't leave any behind.
The volunteers, if they don't get selected, they just go dance with us.
Yeah, so that it's truly inclusive.
Oh, everybody has a blast.
No hurt feelings. Yeah.
No, I saw a volunteer yesterday, and she's like, I did not leave the dance floor, and he knew every single person there. I get introduced to some people I couldn't even keep track.
You're just doing some incredible things in the community, Donielle. Speaking of, and I didn't know how much this was in your initial plans with Dreams, but you've branched off into the Dreams manufacturing and meat pie production, and now you've got a food truck. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, if you'd have told me that when I got out of college I would have a manufacturing company and a food truck, I would tell you were crazy. With meat pies, no less. But we probably 5 years ago, I was at a board meeting, and I told my board members, I said, we really need, the kids are getting older, and they want to have jobs. So we need to get Lafayette on board. And so one of my board members came up to me after and said, I think I have something for you. And I'm like, what is that? He's like, well, y'all can make some meat pies. He must have been like, I know my face was like, what are you talking about? We went, he said, let's go look. So we went and watched it was basically a assembly line. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we could do this. Although it was a long process, which I didn't think would ever end of USDA, God got us through it, and it happened. And then 2 years later, after COVID, applied for a grant, said I'm gonna get a food truck if we get it. Got the grant. I was like, oh my goodness, I have to buy a food truck. From the date I found out I got the grant, we opened 2 months later. Everything was done. It was awe-inspiring. inspiring and crazy how fast donation coming in right at the right moment when I needed to do the wrap. Food truck standing in my lap with a friend of mine who wanted to sell hers. I mean, it was just
everything fell into place.
Divine intervention. It was crazy. It's hit the roads, and I mean, there are slow times, but for the most part, it's doing really well.
Yeah, and you guys have a lot of variety. Tell me about the different types of meat pies you sell.
Right, so we have 12 different types. We have a beef and pork, which are in most local stores, News, Earl's, and all the other local stores. Okay. But then when we opened the food truck, we were going to do just plate lunches. And so our logo is, you dream it, we stuff it. So I said, Brandon, I said, what if we took, this is the chef, I said, what if we took all the stuff that we were going to put in those containers and we shove it in the pie? He's like, ooh, we could definitely do that. So then came the pulled pork and the pepperoni and the chicken Alfredo, which is probably one of the most unique ones we have. Yeah. And then spinach and artichoke and taco, and I can't even think of them all and right you guys now. Buddha and cheese.
Branched off into sweets too, right? See, apple.
Yeah, we have apple and we have cookie dough.
Oh my God, cookie dough.
Oh, Jesus. It is so good.
I bet it is. I need to get some of that.
They're all good. Yeah. And so we just, and every time somebody says, why don't you do this? We try it, you know? I mean, our dream is to have a cafe where we'd be the Subway of meat pies. And you walk in and you tell the person what you want shoved, what you want in it, put it in the oven, and you have your homemade pie.
I love the meat pies too. I usually get them from the frozen section in the store because they're so easy for me. I am a non-cook, okay? And it's just, that's been in my blood. Even, I can't use Lexi as an excuse. Like, oh, I have a special needs child. I don't have time to cook. No, not really. I don't like to cook. So for me, just throwing these things in the oven and then just a few minutes later they're ready and they're so tasty and good. Yeah, love the meat pies. You mentioned about Dreams and the different ways that you guys raise money, but how are you primarily funded? Is it through grants or just private donations, sponsorships, things like that?
It's mostly private donations in our fundraisers, but mostly private donations. We have a lot of people that really believe in what we're doing, and we can't do it without them, to be real honest.
If someone is listening and they live in the Acadiana area or another state and they just want to come down and help you with an event, how does someone go about volunteering to help with the DREAMS Foundation of Acadiana?
We love volunteers. Volunteers can go to our website, www.dreamsfoundationaca.org, and underneath volunteers, there's a form you fill out, and then you'll get a response saying thank you for joining. And then as things come up, you'll get emails. The gala, you always get an email, and then you always get an email for camp. But then there's also other times that we need volunteers.
Right, just throughout the year for different events, definitely. Throughout the interview, and I've known you for many years, I know that faith is very important to you, and you've mentioned it throughout the interview. How important is faith to you and your family?
It's extremely important because when I'm going down a path, my hardest thing to figure out when we're thinking about dreams is, when do I push for something, or when is it not God's will yet and we need to push back and let Him open the path? The factory was a big one. We kept running into these, what I would call brick walls, and they would vanish the next day. And so I'd say, okay, if you want me to go, I can't fix this. And the next day it would absorb, and I'd be like, okay, I'm continuing. So it is definitely a big part of what Dreams is. I know we wouldn't be where we were if God wasn't moving mountains. In fact, for camp, there's always a big chance of rain. In our big group, all the moms, what are we going to do for rain? And my answer is always the same. That's not our department. God's got it. Yeah, and they laugh and they're like, okay, we bring ponchos or umbrellas? I said, I don't care. He's going to take care of it. And every day it would be cloudy, which means it wasn't hot. So it was perfect. And there would be this 85, 95% chance of rain. We would go in there and we do 3 praise and worship songs at the beginning of camp. The last one is pray. The roof would come off because the kids absolutely love it. It gives me chills every time I hear it. And it would not rain till 12.
You guys were doing a sunshine dance.
I'm telling you. And every time I would say, did you just see that? The rain went away and they'd all laugh. I mean, we'd get drizzling, but it was no thunderstorms like called for, especially the day that the horses came. Horses can't be there with that. No rain, not a drop.
Wonderful. And it's been raining, y'all, like every day here. So that's been crazy. But that was definitely some intervention there.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
Out of your control.
No doubt.
What is in the future for the DREAMS Foundation?
The DREAMS Foundation right now is really pushing toward job training. We have so many individuals that are graduating high school, 18, because you can go all the way to 22 if you like, but at 22, it's like a lead balloon dropping. There is not much opportunities out there right now. 90% of it to me is that there's no education to the businesses in town, that our kids are probably a more positive asset than any employee that you can hire.
And speaking to other parents that have have older special needs children, they're loyal to their employer. They're also eager to get to work every day. They look forward to putting on that uniform and going to work. You'll never find a more loyal employee, I think.
And besides that, they'll do the jobs that nobody else wants to do for a fraction of the cost. So that's a big thing that we're working on, and we'd like to start to open up a place for job training, doing some outsourcing. And when we do the outsourcing, them learning how to wash dishes, do the laundry, and even copies or shredding, and then sending it back out to the employers, and then possibly them getting hired by maybe other employers or anywhere in town that will give them a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you listening, if you're not familiar with the DREAMS Foundation, aside from the website that she mentioned, they have a good following on Facebook, so you'll want to check out their page, because you guys usually post at least once a day, several times a week, of the activities that you have going on. There's always something going on with the DREAMS Foundation, so be sure to look them up on Facebook, because it's just an incredible organization to be involved with. Donielle, are there any other topics that you want to talk about that we did not discover?
The only thing that we do want to do in the future, which is a good ways off, but we're hoping that it will start with our job training center, to have a community where the kids can live once the parents aren't around anymore. The Unity Village community, the dream has been there for a while. It's a big undertaking, and we don't want to do it until it's God's plan, until he's ready for it. So, and the parents are more than ready for it. I probably get asked at least once to twice every 6 months when it's going to happen. And I used to get really nervous and agitated when people ask, because a lot of the people who are asking aren't helping. So the answer is now, it's God's plan. You can see a lot of people run fast when you say that.
Either run towards you or away from.
They don't know how to respond to that. But I truly believe it, and it's given me peace, because it's the truth. It will happen.
Yeah.
I just don't know when.
Well, Donielle, thank you so much for being here today. This was an interview that was great and just kind of flew by. Thank you so much for talking about your family and dreams and everything else you guys do. I don't know how you do it all, but
thank you very much.
Definitely. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this episode of This Ability Podcast. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, be sure to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel for video podcast at This Ability Podcast for updates and new episode postings. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for listening. Help us grow our audience by subscribing to our podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast networks. Additionally, if you enjoy listening to our podcast, help us to be discovered by leaving a rating or review of our episodes. This will connect us with other potential listeners and help us to expand our audience. From all of us at This Ability Podcast, we thank you for your ongoing support of our mission to unveil stories that inspire and enlighten others in the special needs community.